In today's lesson, we are going to be comparing simple and compound interest. So in our last lesson, we looked at simple interest and we learned how to calculate it. Basically, again, interest is something extra or something earned or something owed on top of an initial amount, depending on whether you're borrowing or saving money. Now, we looked at simple interest in our last lesson, and that is the most basic type of interest. And we're going to look and compare between simple interest and another type called compound interest. Now, compound interest is the one that you are most commonly going to find. It's a little bit more complex, but anything you look at, whether it's credit cards, bank accounts, anything like that, it's generally using compound interest. Mortgages, loans, it's all using compound interest, and it's not really simple interest. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that at the end of when we look at this. So simple interest is a fixed amount that is based on a percentage rate added to the principal or initial investment or debt, whether it's you're borrowing or saving money, each year. So we want to complete the chart for $2,000 invested at 5% simple interest for 5 years. So if I look at year 0, my principal is $2,000 and I have zero interest earned because we're starting at year 0. So this is like the beginning. And so our total amount at the end is $2,000. Now in year 1, we have $2,000. Our interest earned, which I'm going to use the I equals PRT formula. So 2,000 times 0.005 for 5%. And I'm going to multiply it by 1 year. So actually, if we just kind of try to fit that all in here. So I equals PRT. I equals 2,000 times 0.05 times 1, because I'm only looking at it 1 year at a time, and I get 100. So $100 is how much interest we've earned in the first year. So our total amount is $2,100. Now the next year, we still have the same principal, the same initial amount. And the interest earned, it's going to be the exact same thing for another year. Now we're at $2,200. Our principal was still the same. Earn another $100. Now we're at $2,300. And you can kind of see the pattern. We earn the same amount every year because of what we put in initially. So after 5 years, we end up with $2,500 or $2,500. That's simple interest. We're going to look at compound interest now, and compound interest is interest added on top of or added to the principal initial amount or debt, so that the added interest also earn interest from then on. So basically what's happening is the interest that we earn in a year or in a earning period gets added to our principal, and then we recalculate the amount of interest earned. So we're earning interest on top of the interest we earned. So we're going to complete the same chart and look at the difference between the two. So this one's kind of already got us started so we can see the difference. Year 0 is still the same thing. We start off with $2,000. Zero interest earned, we end with 2,000. Year 1, we have $2,000. The amount of interest earned, a little bit of a typo here. We earn $100 because we've already calculated that. Same idea, 5% for 1 year is $100. So we earn, our total amount is $2,100. Now the difference between compound interest and simple interest is this final amount now becomes the initial amount for the next year, or the principal for the next year. So next year we have $2,100 and we calculate the interest. Right? If we want to kind of quickly fill it in, we did I equals 2,100 times 0.05 times 1, which gave us the $105. So we calculate now, we have a new interest amount earned because we have a different principal. We end with $2,205. Now, at the beginning of year 3, we take what we ended with, and that becomes our new initial amount. So then in year 3, we calculate I equals 2,205 times the 5% times 1, and that will equal our new interest, or $110.25. That gets added to our principal. We now have 2,315.25 and 25 cents. Year 4, again, our principal is now what we ended with in the previous year. So 2,315.25. We can calculate our interest again. I'm just going to do it quickly, just so it looks a little bit neater. We end up with $115.76. So our total amount at the end of 4 years, $2,431.01, rounding. That becomes our principal for the next year. 2431.01 times 5% times 1 year. We get $121.55. Add that to what we started with. 2,552.56. So that is our new total amount when we're calculating our interest over 5 years using compound interest. So the interest that we earn in 1 year gets added to our principal, and we calculate the interest off of that. So we're earning interest on top of our interest. And in the end, and when we look at our two different amounts, right? For simple interest, we earned $2,500 after 5 years. For compound interest, we earned $2,552.56. Again, you might say, well, what's the difference? Over 5 years, that's only $52. Like, that's not that much, $10 extra a year. Again, you're not doing much with the money, right? Within these scenarios, and when you're saving money, you're putting it into an account and you're letting it earn interest. So you're not doing anything. So if you don't want an extra $3 or extra $50, I mean, I'm sure someone would gladly take it, right? It's the idea that, yeah, it might not be that much, but if you start putting more in, or if you're saving a larger amount, then the amount of interest earned over time compounded would be even bigger. Now, we mentioned at the beginning, like, compound interest is what you are most commonly going to see in the real world, right? Bank accounts, credit cards, loans. You're going to see compound interest. And you might say to yourself, well, why am I seeing compound interest? Simple interest, it'll earn less, right? Right. So again, it depends on the scenario, right? If you're saving money, you might be like, well, no, if I'm saving money, I'd rather compound interest, right? Because I'm going to earn more money. If I owe money and I'm paying this back and I have to pay back the interest, then you might say, well, I'd rather it be simple interest because I'll pay back less, right? Unfortunately, you don't get to kind of pick and choose what interest you use. The banks are always going to be using compound interest. And you might say, well, how does that work? Right? Compound interest, they would have to pay you more money, right? So why would they want to use compound interest? Why wouldn't they let you just choose? Well, when you look at certain statements, when you look at a loan or your credit card statement, and it talks about interest, if you look at mortgages, you're going to find that the rates rates for interest on the money that you borrow is a lot higher than the interest on the rates when you save money, right? So savings accounts, GICs, things like that. So the rates when you save money is low. When you borrow money, it's higher. So the bank is technically making more money off of you when you borrow money than it is paying you to save money. Right? So that's just kind of how it works. That's how the banks. That's one of the ways banks make their money. Right. So you have to be mindful and think about what type of interest you're dealing with. And we'll look at in our next lesson. We'll look at the compound interest concept a little bit more in depth. We'll look at it more with a formula so we can calculate it under different scenarios and hopefully get a better idea of it. But this lesson is just focusing on like the difference between the two. How does compound interest differ from simple interest? We see these tables. We're going to continue with that concept of compound interest though in a later lesson.